You ever have one of those moments where your entire body just freezes? Like you're caught in a nightmare, and even though your brain is screaming, "Move! Get out!" your feet are just glued to the floor? That's how I felt when I saw her. But let me back up for a second. My name's Mike Stevens. Just your average guy, nothing special. I work as a sales manager, typical 9 to 5. I moved into a new apartment a few months back, just on the outskirts of Philly. I was coming out of a really bad breakup with my ex Jessica, and when I say bad, I mean bad. Jessica and I were together for 3 years. We met in college. She was beautiful. Way out of my league, to be honest. At first, it was like a dream. She was intense, sure, but it was exciting. She had this wild side, always spontaneous, unpredictable. And it was fun, until it wasn't. Over time, that spontaneity turned into possessiveness. She needed to know where I was 24/7, who I was with, what I was doing. And if I didn't answer her texts fast enough, she'd blow up my phone, calls, voicemails, all of it. It was suffocating. I tried to make it work for a long time, but eventually, I hit my breaking point. I called it quits, and of course, Jessica didn't take it well. For months after, she'd show up at my place unannounced, leave these long emotional messages, and even get my friends involved. It got so bad that I changed my number, blocked her on everything, and moved to this new apartment to start over. For the first few weeks, it was bliss. I didn't hear from her, didn't see her, didn't think about her. Life was finally moving forward. And then, one Saturday afternoon, I was unpacking groceries in the parking lot of my complex when I saw a moving truck pull up. I glanced over. Normal thing, right? People move in and out all the time. But then I saw her. Jessica. At first I thought, no way, it couldn't be her. I was probably just projecting, right? My heart was racing, but I kept telling myself it was impossible. I mean, what are the odds? I gave up my entire life to get away from her. But then I saw her get out of the truck. My ex, the one I'd been running from, the one I'd practically erased myself to escape, was moving into the apartment right next door to me. I remember standing there, gripping my grocery bags, my stomach twisted in knots. My brain couldn't process it. This wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. Not with Jessica. She was the type who didn't believe in coincidences. I didn't know what to do. Should I say something? Confront her? Before I could decide, she spotted me. She smiled, this big, almost too friendly smile, and walked right over like nothing had ever happened between us. "Mike!" she said, like she was surprised to see me. "Oh my God, what are the chances we'd end up here? Small world, huh?" I just stared at her, speechless. My body was frozen. All I could do was nod and mumble something like, "Yeah, small world," before heading inside as fast as I could. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with a million thoughts. Did she plan this? Did she know where I moved? I had been so careful, but Jessica was smart, too smart. I wanted to believe it was just an insane coincidence, but something in the pit of my stomach told me this wasn't random. The next few days were weird, to say the least. Every time I left my apartment, she was there. She'd find excuses to run into me, asking to borrow sugar, asking if I could help her carry something. It was like she was trying to make herself a part of my life again. I tried to be polite, distant, but not rude, because the last thing I wanted was to provoke her. But it wasn't long before her true colors started to show. One night I was coming home late from work. It must have been around 11 p.m. I was dead tired, just wanting to crash. As I reached my door, I noticed something strange, a note taped to it. My name was written in Jessica's handwriting, and inside she had scribbled, "We need to talk." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. She hadn't been to my door before. It was always casual run-ins, but this was different. This was her getting bold. The next morning I found another note on my car windshield. Same thing. "We need to talk." No explanation, no details. Just the same words. It felt like she was trying to pull me back into her web, and I knew if I responded, even acknowledged it, I'd be stuck in that toxic loop again. I decided to ignore it. For the next week, the notes kept coming. Every day, like clockwork. One on my door, one on my car. The tone of her texts changed, too. She went from friendly, casual, to accusing, aggressive. Things like, "You can't keep avoiding me, Mike. We have unfinished business." I knew she wasn't going to stop, and that's when I realized I was going to have to confront her. One evening, I saw her standing outside her door as I came back from work. I figured this was as good a time as any to set things straight. I walked up to her, heart pounding, and said, "Jessica, this has to stop." She looked at me with this twisted smile and said, "Stop? I'm not doing anything wrong. I just moved in and we happen to be neighbors. What's the problem?" I told her about the notes, the constant harassment, the games she was playing. But she just stared at me, almost amused, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about, Mike. I haven't left you any notes." That's when it hit me. I had no proof. None. She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd found a way to make me question my own sanity, just like she used to. The final straw came one night at around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of someone trying to open my front door. My heart was pounding in my chest. I grabbed my phone and ran to the door, listening as the handle jiggled. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. I called the cops, but by the time they arrived, whoever it was had left. I told them everything, about Jessica, the notes, the stalking, but without hard evidence, there wasn't much they could do. I started looking for a new place the very next day. The last thing that happened? The night before I moved out, I came home to find my apartment completely trashed. It wasn't just messy. Someone had gone through everything. My clothes were scattered, drawers emptied, pictures ripped off the walls, but nothing was stolen. On my bed was a single photo. It was a picture of me and Jessica, back when we were still together. She had scribbled out her face with a red marker and written across the bottom, "You can't escape me." I moved out the next morning without telling anyone where I was going. To this day, I haven't seen or heard from Jessica again, but I can't shake the feeling that one day I'll look out my window and she'll be there, smiling that same twisted smile. I don't know how to start this without sounding dramatic, but the past year of my life feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. It's one of those things you hear about in movies, or maybe a friend of a friend's crazy ex, but you never think it'll happen to you. It started with a breakup. Not an unusual one either. We were two normal people dating for a couple of years and it just wasn't working out anymore. At least that's how I saw it. My name is Ethan Andrews, by the way, and this story, it's real. I wish it weren't, but here we are. Amanda, my ex, she was always a bit intense, I guess. We met at a mutual friend's party, hit it off right away, and things moved fast. Too fast looking back. But I guess I was swept up in it. She was charming, fun, and for the first 6 months, it felt like we were perfect together. The little things didn't bother me at first, like how she always wanted to know where I was or how she'd get upset if I didn't respond to her texts within a few minutes. I figured she just cared, you know? But after a while, it became suffocating. Every time I hung out with my friends, she'd blow up my phone asking why I wasn't spending time with her instead. If I mentioned hanging out with anyone, even co-workers, she'd accuse me of not caring about our relationship. I couldn't go anywhere without her asking for pictures, as if she needed proof I wasn't lying about where I was. I tried to make it work for longer than I should have, honestly. But there was this one night that pushed me over the edge. We were supposed to go to a friend's wedding together, but I came down with the flu, like full-on fever, chills, the works. I told her I couldn't make it, and she got so angry. She accused me of lying, of making up excuses so I wouldn't have to be seen with her. That was it. That was the moment I knew I had to end it. I couldn't take her constant accusations, her need to control every aspect of my life. So I broke it off, thinking we'd both move on, but Amanda had other ideas. For the first couple of weeks after the breakup, I didn't hear much from her. She texted a few times, tried to call, but I figured she'd get the hint and leave me alone eventually. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my apartment. She wasn't yelling or angry. She just stood there looking sad, asking why I was ignoring her. "I just want to talk, Ethan," she said, her voice soft but persistent. "We were so good together. Can't we at least try to work things out?" I was polite at first, told her I needed space, that I wasn't ready to talk. She nodded, said she understood, and left. But it didn't stop there. She started showing up more frequently. At first it was outside my apartment, or she'd coincidentally bump into me at the coffee shop down the street. But soon, it was everywhere. My gym, the grocery store, even my work parking lot. She was always there, always watching like she was waiting for me to change my mind. Then the texts started getting weird. She'd say things like, "I miss you," or "I saw you today, you look good." But the creepy part was, I hadn't seen her. At least, I hadn't noticed her. She was watching me though. Everywhere I went, she was there. One day I came home to find flowers on my doorstep. No note, no name, just flowers. A part of me knew it was her, but I tried to convince myself it wasn't. That was until she texted me later that night. "Did you get my gift?" she asked. I didn't respond. The next morning there was a note on my car windshield. "Please talk to me," it said. "I don't understand why you're doing this." I called the police thinking they'd be able to help, but they just told me to get a restraining order. So I did. I filed the paperwork, got the order, and thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. Amanda was clever. She knew exactly how far she could push things without breaking the law. She didn't come near me, but she'd send me letters, leave little gifts outside my apartment, or have her friends check in on me. It was like she was always one step ahead, always knowing what to do to keep herself out of trouble but still make my life hell. Then one night, something happened that I'll never forget. It was around midnight and I was just about to go to bed when I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart sank. I knew it was her. I checked the peephole and there she was, standing outside my door, staring at the ground. She wasn't pounding on the door or yelling, she just stood there like she was waiting for me to let her in. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I texted my neighbor, asked him to call the police. I was too scared to even make the call myself. I stood there, my back against the door, just waiting for her to leave. But she didn't. She started talking. At first it was quiet, like she was talking to herself. I could barely make out the words. But then she got louder. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm doing this for us, Ethan. You can't just walk away from me. We belong together." I could feel my hands shaking. I tried to stay calm, tried to breathe, but I couldn't stop the panic from setting in. I thought about opening the door, confronting her, telling her to leave me alone. But something stopped me. A part of me knew that if I opened that door, things would get worse. The police eventually showed up, and by the time they arrived, Amanda was gone. They told me they'd patrol the area, but there wasn't much they could do unless she violated the restraining order. I felt helpless. For weeks, I barely left my apartment. I was too afraid of running into her. I changed my number, deleted my social media accounts, did everything I could to cut her off. But Amanda, she wouldn't let go. One night I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. It was a blocked number. I didn't answer, but then a voicemail popped up. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button, but curiosity got the better of me. It was her. "Ethan, I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I know I've been a lot, but I just need you to understand. I can't live without you. I won't. You'll see. We'll be together soon." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Her words echoed in my head, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The next morning, I found a note taped to my apartment door. It was short, simple, but terrifying. "Goodbye, Ethan." I called the police again, told them everything, but once again, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested I stay with a friend for a few days, just in case. So I packed a bag and stayed with my buddy Chris for the next week. When I finally returned home, things seemed normal, too normal. I hadn't heard from Amanda in days, and for a moment I thought maybe she had finally given up, but then, one last thing happened. I came home one night to find my apartment completely dark. I flipped the light switch, nothing. I thought maybe the power had gone out, but then I noticed something on the floor near the window. It was a picture frame, face down. I picked it up and my stomach dropped. It was a picture of Amanda and me, from when we first started dating, but the glass was shattered and Amanda's face had been scratched out. I moved out the next day. That was months ago, and I haven't seen or heard from Amanda since. I've tried to move on with my life, but the truth is, I still feel like she's out there, watching, waiting,